You never understood why the atmosphere would shift the moment you stepped into a room. You thought it was awkwardness, social misalignment, another reminder that you were out of place. But you were wrong. What you felt wasn't rejection, it was recognition. People sensed something in you before you sensed it in yourself. A quiet warning humming beneath your footsteps, an unspoken tension that made even the loudest personalities straighten their backs as if something dangerous had entered the perimeter. Conversations stalled not because they dismissed you, but because they were recalibrating, reading you, assessing you, trying to understand what exactly you were capable of. You mistook the silence for distance when in truth it was respect laced with fear. You never meant to broadcast anything unusual. You walked in with your shoulders slightly lowered, your thoughts elsewhere, your presence apologizing for taking up space. Yet the moment your shadow touched the floor, the chaotic noise around you condensed into something brittle. Eyes shifted, words faded. Even the ones who pretended not to notice stole a glance just to confirm you were real. There is a certain stillness that surrounds someone who has been betrayed enough times to stop seeking warmth, someone who has learned to rely on their own instincts rather than the shifting loyalty of others. That stillness follows you like a silent herald. People feel it before they understand it, and deep down, you've felt the shift too, the subtle way the world responds to you, like you're a variable they can't calculate. You move quietly, but your silence has weight. You don't fight for attention, yet you become the reference point in the room. You don't demand respect, yet people lower their voices as if raising them would awaken something better left undisturbed. What you call overthinking, they experience as strategic distance. What you call being reserved, they interpret as a controlled threat. They don't know your story, but they sense its sharp edges. They don't know your past, but they feel the fire that forged you. There's an ancient symbolism to your presence, the kind found in old myths where the quiet traveler turns out to be the one carrying storms beneath their skin. People notice the way you observe rather than react, the way your eyes track patterns others overlook, the way you don't crumble under tension. That unsettles them. It should. You are not the person who breaks under pressure. You are the one who becomes clearer, calmer, more precise. And every time you enter a room, the world pauses because it has learned something you haven't yet accepted. You were never meant to blend into the background. You were built to shift the atmosphere without speaking a single word. You never understood why people looked at you the way they did. That subtle flinch, that thin hesitation hidden behind polite smile. You told yourself it was all in your head, that you were overthinking the inconsistencies in their behavior. But there's a moment, quiet and sharp, when the truth starts to bleed through. They weren't reacting to who you thought you were. They were reacting to something you never admitted existed, something coiled beneath your calm exterior, something they felt before you ever sensed it. A shadow that walks with you, unannounced yet unmistakable, brushing against their instincts in ways they can't articulate but can't ignore either. You thought your silence made you harmless. They saw it as the silence of someone who calculates. Someone who watches everything without needing to be seen. Someone who remembers. They notice the way you step back when others rush forward, the way you observe patterns that slip past everyone else, the way you hold your tongue moments longer than the average person should. That pause unsettles them. They don't know what you're holding back, only that it's more than they're prepared to handle. In their eyes, restraint is not peace, it is a warning, a dormant blade, reflecting nothing yet capable of everything. You weren't raised to see yourself as powerful. You were raised to survive chaos by shrinking, by dimming your edges, by fitting into spaces that were never meant for. They mistook that shrinking for camouflage. They saw the tension in your posture, the intelligence behind your eyes, the emotion you lock behind an expression that never reveals its full meaning. Some part of them recognized it instantly, the way predators recognize each other long before they cross paths. They sensed a force without a name, a depth without a bottom, a potential capable of rearranging entire rooms without lifting a hand. The odd reactions you received weren't random, they were warnings passed down through gesture, averted eyes, nervous laughter, sudden changes in tone. They didn't fear the person you were pretending to be. They feared the version of you that slipped through when your guard accidentally dropped, the version that spoke too honestly, stood too firmly, or saw too clearly. The version you kept buried because you assumed that stronger meant broken, louder meant reckless, sharper meant wrong. But the truth is simpler and far more unsettling. They saw your strength long before you understood it. They recognized the monster you refused to acknowledge. Not a creature made of rage or violence, but a force built from clarity, resilience, and a mind that doesn't fall for the illusions that keep others obedient. They weren't reacting to weakness. They were reacting to the danger of someone who can no longer be controlled, someone who can dismantle lies with a single sentence, someone who carries an energy that exposes pretenders and threatens fragile egos. They sensed the shift in you before you sensed it yourself, and it terrified them. They watch you the way people study thunderstorms, pretending they're calm while calculating the damage you could unleash if you ever stopped holding yourself back. You've noticed it even in the smallest gestures, the sudden stillness when you speak, the sideways glances when you enter a room, the careful tone they adopt around you, as if your silence is a pressure system they cannot predict or control. They break you down into pieces, file you into categories, cross-reference your reactions with their private assumption, not because they admire you, but because unpredictability terrifies them. You're the variable they can't solve, the encrypted file they can't decode, the locked door that refuses to reveal what lies behind it. And nothing unsettles people more than a person who moves through the world without broadcasting their intention. You can feel it now, the way they gather fragments of you like evidence, how they replay your expressions in their minds, trying to determine what you meant, what you might do next, what version of yourself you're hiding. Their fear isn't loud, it's methodical. A quiet paranoia disguised as curiosity. They monitor your silence more closely than your words. They wait to see which emotions you choose to reveal and which ones you keep buried. They turn your calmness into threat, your restraint into danger, your indifference into power. Every moment you withhold becomes a blank space they scramble to fill with their own narrative, and each story they invent says more about their fears than it does about you. There's a reason for this. People were taught to trust what's loud, predictable, and easily understood. But you've always been the opposite, subtle, unreadable, strategically distant. You move like someone who has endured betrayal and learned to observe before deciding where to place your loyalty. That alone makes them uneasy, because it means you're not controlled by impulse or validation. You see through patterns they don't even realize they're repeating. You notice the tremor in their voice when they lie, the shift in their posture when guilt leaks through, the way their eyes betray intentions they never speak. You don't expose them. You simply file the information away, and it's that quiet intelligence that makes them feel as if they're standing under a spotlight while you remain in the dark. And somewhere deep inside, they know you're aware of their analysis. You've felt the weight of their surveillance, the unspoken tension, the way their conversations fall flat when you enter. What they don't realize is that every attempt to study you only confirms what they fear most. You're operating on a level they can't access. You're not hiding from them. You're watching them watch you. And that awareness alone is enough to make even the confident ones tread lightly around you, as if they sense a story unfolding that they were never meant to read. You were born carrying the one trait no one around you could ever tame, the refusal to kneel. It didn't roar or announce itself. It whispered through the quiet ways you stayed separate, the way you never merged into the noise, the way you held your own mind even when the world pressed its weight against your ribs. Long before you understood it, others sensed it like an approaching storm. They felt the way you didn't depend on their approval, how you moved through their expectations without bending, how your silence didn't indicate weakness, but a depth they couldn't reach. They tried to read you the way they read everyone else, but your thoughts stayed locked behind doors they did not have the keys for. That frightened them. People always fear what they cannot steer. You didn't grow up thinking you were powerful. You learned to stay small, to stay unnoticed, to stay out of the way. But beneath that practiced stillness lived a different kind of architecture, a mind that refused to attach to illusion, a heart that never surrendered itself cheaply. You were the type who saw the cracks in every mask, who heard the tension behind rehearsed laughter. And when people realized you couldn't be manipulated by cheap emotional tricks, they began to label you as distant, cold, difficult. They needed those labels to protect themselves from the truth you could see through them. Your independence acted like a mirror, exposing the insecurities they tried to bury. They resented you for that clarity, even when you didn't speak a word, especially when you didn't speak a word. Your detachment has always been your rebellion. You never begged for space. You created it. You never fought for a seat at their tables. You walked past them. You never demanded recognition. You let your presence unsettle the room. That's what they couldn't control, the way you existed outside their emotional economy. They couldn't offer you anything you couldn't live without. They couldn't threaten you with isolation, because solitude has never been your enemy. They couldn't lure you with validation, because you learned to generate your own. And in a world held together by craving and fear, someone who needs nothing becomes dangerous. Now you see it clearly. Your independence wasn't an accident. It was ancestry. It was survival. It was the ancient instinct of wolves who learned to walk alone without losing themselves. And as you finally step into that truth, you notice how people adjust around you, how their tone softens, how their movements sharpen, how their eyes track you with the awareness reserved for forces they can't predict. They still don't understand you, they never will, but they feel the shift. You no longer fit inside the frame they built for you. You outgrew it the moment you stopped apologizing for your nature. They never came at you directly. That would have revealed too much, exposed their fear too clearly. Instead, they approached you sideways, through quiet comments slipped under the door of your mind, through smiles that curled wrong at the edges, through carefully timed doubts that made you shrink half an inch at a time. You thought they were harmless, people filling silence with noise, but there was intention behind every casual remark. They watched how you hesitated, how you questioned your worth, how you tried to make yourself smaller to avoid conflict you never started. And every time you softened your voice or apologized without reason, they marked it as progress, proof that their strategy was working. They did not want to break you. Breaking you would make the truth too loud. They wanted erosion instead, slow, patient, invisible, the kind that makes you believe the collapse was your own fault. You didn't notice the pattern at first because the attacks were dressed in familiarity. A raised eyebrow here, a joking insult there, a suggestion that you were overreacting when your instincts warned you otherwise. They made you doubt your reactions long before you doubted them. They used your empathy against you, knowing you'd second guess yourself before you'd ever question their motive. It became a quiet ritual. They spoke, you folded, they pushed, you yielded, they lied, you rationalized. But even then, some ancient part of you resisted, a small, stubborn flame that refused to die no matter how often they tried to smother it with their projections. It flickered in moments you can recall clearly now, the sudden heaviness in the room when you entered, the strange pauses in conversations, the way people watched you as if waiting for you to forget who you were. They weren't trying to humble you, they were trying to maintain a world where you never awakened. But the truth has a way of bleeding through every disguise, and eventually you started feeling the tension beneath their smile. The wrongness of it all pressed against your ribs like a locked message begging to be read. You began to notice how people spoke differently when you stopped trying to shrink, how their jokes faltered, how their eyes darted in quick, nervous patterns. Power shifts quietly at first, a change in the air, a shift in posture, a silence that stretches too long. And in that silence, you finally saw the purpose behind their behavior. They feared the moment you realized you never needed their permission to exist at full size. Their world relied on your hesitation. Their comfort depended on your confusion. But the moment you traced every cut back to its source, the illusion cracked. You stood taller without trying. You breathed deeper without asking. And they felt it instantly, the awakening they feared. You start to notice it in the quiet moments, when the world stops moving long enough for the truth to breathe. A strange alignment between memories you dismissed and behaviors you excused. A pattern revealing itself like an ancient symbol carved beneath layers of dust. Every time someone belittled you with a smile, every moment you were made to doubt your instincts, every sudden shift in tone when you entered a room. None of it was random, it was choreography, a coordinated attempt to keep you unaware of the magnitude you carry. And now, as these fragments begin stitching themselves together, something inside you sharpens. You feel the weight of every overlooked moment pressing against your ribs, not to crush you, but to remind you that you were never the weak link in the chain. You were the threat, The realization lands quietly, but its impact reverberates through your entire inner world. You start examining each interaction with new eyes, eyes no longer clouded by the need to be liked or understood. You see the tension in their shoulders when you fall silent. You see the micro expressions they thought you couldn't read. You see how their calmness cracked whenever you started asking the wrong question. They weren't avoiding conflict. They were avoiding exposure. They were afraid you would trace the lines they tried to hide, lines that all pointed to one truth: you were growing faster than they could contain. And they knew the moment you recognized your own capacity, their influence would evaporate. Those who benefit from your blindness always fear the day you learn to see. The shift inside you is subtle yet irreversible. It feels like a forbidden chapter in your mind has been unsealed, one you were never meant to access. You begin to replay every betrayal not as a wound but as evidence. Every silence you endured becomes a timestamp. Every dismissal becomes a clue. You start mapping the pattern, and the more clearly it forms, the more the air around you changes. You no longer walk with uncertainty. You no longer speak as though you need permission. The version of you they tried to sculpt cracks open, and the real one steps out with steady, unshaken steps. You become aware of how rarely you ever needed anyone, how instinctively you adapted, how naturally you survived the places meant to break you. And for the first time, you don't feel guilty for seeing through people. You feel prepared. The awakening doesn't come with fire or fury. It comes with clarity, a cold, precise understanding that you were never misunderstood. You were underestimated. And the moment that truth settles into your bones, everything shifts, not because the world has changed, but because you finally understand the role you were meant to play in it. You feel the shift long before you admit it. The old hesitation that used to curl around your ribs loosens, and something colder, sharper, more deliberate settles in its place. For years, you mistook your silence for weakness, mistook your restraint for fear, mistook your distance for damage. But now you see the truth they saw in you from the beginning. A mind that doesn't break under pressure, a heartbeat that never speeds up when the room turns hostile, a presence that forces people to recalculate their next move. You don't raise your voice. You don't need to. The air bends first. They always sense this potential, that quiet capacity to dismantle illusions with a single look. And they tried to bury it under doubts they hoped you would carry forever. But the weight isn't on your shoulders anymore. It's in your hands, and it feels steady. They don't speak to you the same way now. Their sentences grow shorter, their smiles tighten, their eyes dart too quickly, as if searching for the version of you they once manipulated with ease. But that version has dissolved into something they cannot name. You move with a patience that unsettles them, a calculated calm that feels less like peace and more like a warning written in an ancient language. You're no longer trying to blend in with people who used your kindness as camouflage for their intention. You've learned how effortlessly they fold when they realize their influence over you is gone. You watch their masks slip, the nervous tapping, the forced laughter, the sudden politeness. Power doesn't roar, it rearranges the room without saying a word, and you finally understand that this was always your nature. Now you move differently, not faster, not louder, but with an authority that doesn't need permission. The world feels smaller in some places, wider in others, as if the terrain itself adjusts to the shape of your awareness. You've stopped apologizing for the instincts that kept you alive. The intuition that warned you before betrayal arrived wearing friendly faces. You've started honoring the part of you that studies patterns like constellation, that senses motives before words are spoken, that steps back not out of fear but strategy. People feel this shift. They sense the quiet precision in the way you observe, the unblinking steadiness in your decisions, the absence of doubt where it used to echo. They don't know what you'll do next, and that uncertainty becomes its own kind of shadow. You've become the variable they can't calculate, the equation that doesn't balance unless you choose to let it. And for the first time, you aren't dimming your power to make others comfortable. You let it breathe, you let it rise, and the world reacts the way it can when something unstoppable stops hiding. You feel the shift long before anyone says a word. It starts in the way people look at you now. Quick glances, measured tones, a strange caution they never used before. They can sense that something in you no longer bends. The soft edges they once relied on have disappeared, replaced by a stillness that feels older than anything they understand. You move through the world like someone who has stopped apologizing for existing, someone who finally recognizes the weight of their own shadow, and that alone is enough to unsettle them. They don't know what changed, but they know it's real. They know you're not holding back anymore. There was a time when you softened your voice, reduced your steps, concealed your instincts just to make others comfortable. You mistook your restraint for humility, but it was survival, strategic, unspoken survival. You hid your fire because you thought revealing it would burn everything around you. But now you see the truth. They were never afraid of the flame. They were afraid of what you'd illuminate if you let yourself burn at full brightness. You were the mirror they avoided, the storm they prayed would stay silent. Now that you're no longer shrinking to fit the stories they wrote about you, their own narratives collapse under their weight. You feel an odd calm rising from this realization. Not anger, not revenge, just clarity, a clarity that separates the ones who tried to silence you from the ones who quietly hoped you'd rise. The betrayal no longer stings. It reads like an ancient script, a pattern old as time. Every powerful person had their circle of doubters, mockers, and hidden saboteurs. They underestimated you because it made them feel safe. They whispered about you because it made them feel tall. But now the balance has shifted, and they feel the ground tilt beneath them. Your presence carries a different temperature now. People who once dismissed you measure their sentences carefully. Those who underestimated you avoid eye contact, as if your gaze might reveal their weakness. Even the loud ones, the ones who used to speak over you, lower their voices when you step close. They feel your awareness, your composure, your refusal to play small. And for the first time, they understand what you always carried, the ability to see through their masks, their tactics, their fear. You walk forward not with arrogance, but with the unshakable understanding that you are no longer the version of yourself they controlled. You have stepped into the self they feared you'd become, the one who moves with purpose, speaks with precision, and no longer seeks permission to exist. And they know it. They feel it in every room you enter, in every word you speak, in every silence that now carries more weight than your voice ever did. They know you're done holding back, and nothing terrifies them more. If you want the next section expanded, the full script written, or a different tone applied, darker, more unhinged, more Joker-coded, more prophetic, more dangerous, just tell me. I'll shape it exactly to your vision.